Okay. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to do this seamless coil right here. And sorry about that. And it's not as difficult as it looks. It's relatively simple. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get to it. So what we're going to need, the tools, is small torch. Butane torch will do, you know. Some flux. Here's the flux that I use. Some silver solder. Yeah, it comes in different hardnesses. Comes in hard, medium, easy, extra extra easy, and other hardnesses as well. I need a pair of tweezers, our flush cutters, pliers, and a file. Also a soldering board. Along with a ring mandrel to make the base ring. So that's it for tools. As far as materials go, we're going to be using a 16 gauge base wire right here. Okay, and some 24 gauge wire and 26 gauge. Okay, so that's it. That's all the materials that we're going to need for this. It's going to be an easy little thing. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Alright, so let's get all this out the way. Okay, so first things first, take our 16 gauge wire and on our ring mandrel. Okay, so we're going to bend it around our ring mandrel to make our circle. Alright, so, and I usually vary the sizes that I need, you know, so for this one, I'm going to just do it as that size ring. Okay, so you can make these any size you want. It's not necessarily a certain size that it has to be. I've made them very small to very large. My largest seamless coil is on a 6-inch ring. So, and also somebody had brought up that, you know, if you want to do this style seamless coil and you don't want to do the soldering and stuff like that, you can also use a key ring. Key ring would work as well. So just keep that in mind. So now that we got our ring made, we're going to go ahead and just flush cut the ends like you would a normal jump ring. Okay. Alright, so now what we want to do is get rid of this little, oh dang it, get rid of that little nib at the tip, if I can get this thing to focus. Sorry about that. Alright, so there's a little nib right here on the tip from flush cutters. So what we're going to do is just take our file and just go over it a couple times just to file that nib down. Okay, and do the same thing on this side. Just alright, so now that we got that taken care of, what we want to do is we want to close our ring. So I'm going to go ahead and close it just like such. Alright, so now we got it closed, and this seam here, is nice and tight. Okay, so now we need to take our soldering board, okay, our solder, and I'll run my solder through my sandpaper a couple times just to make sure it's not tarnished, because if your solder is tarnished, it generally won't flow as easy, and it'll take a longer time to solder. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cut a tiny little piece off. You don't need a whole lot. Okay, so just cut that off. I got about 1 millimeter right there. Okay, there. Alright, so tweezers. So alright, so that's all you need really right there to do it, is just a tiny piece. Okay, so now we're going to take our flux, okay, and we're going to go ahead and I usually just, for projects like this, I just take my ring and I dip it in the flux like so. Now you need the flux to where the solder can flow. It's a must with hard solder. Okay, so and that is it on that. So now put that back. Alright, so now I just take my ring and I lay it down. I'll lay it down on top of that small piece of solder like such. Okay, so now it's laying down on top of that piece of solder. Now take our torch. Okay, now right here you want to be careful because you don't want to melt your ring. So what you're going to do is you're just going to go around and keep an eye on it. Just make a circle around the ring, spreading your heat evenly. Okay. Alright, so now our solder has flowed right there. So now we're going to take the ring and just quench it in a container of water. You know, quench it in a container of water to where it's not hot. And you can work with it. Alright, so now we're done with that for now. Alright, so just take it and dry it off. Alright, so with that done, if you can see it right here is the solder joint. You know, it's strong, it's not going anywhere. So now we just want to check it again for roundness. You know, put it on your ring mandrel and, you know, just make sure it's nice and round. So with that said, that part is done. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of 24 gauge. I'm going to cut it about about a foot and a half to 2 feet. I usually always over measure just in case something happens. Okay, so now we got our 24 gauge right here. Okay, and then we have our 26 gauge, which is going to be wrapped around the 24 gauge. Now for this, I use a drill. Okay, yeah, I have a video up on how it's done. Alright, but I'm going to go ahead and show y'all again in this one, so just give me a moment to set it all up. Okay, so now we're going to make this coil, this coil right here. So right here I have a fishing hook swivel. Get it at Walmart or any sporting goods store. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to connect our 24 gauge wire to this fishing swivel. Okay, so you just want to put it on there and just give it a couple of twists, and then voila, your 24 gauge is connected and ready to be twisted. Alright, so now we can take our 26 gauge wire, and I usually just let the spool sit on the floor and it unravels from there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take the two ends of this wire and just twist them together. Okay, so just like that. Just like that. Okay, so there's that. And then, now those are twisted together. You're going to take your drill, and you're just going to open up the chuck a little bit. Okay, and then you stick your twisted end into the chuck of the drill. Close it up nice and tight. Okay. Alright, now that that's tight, you're going to want to give me one moment. Alright, so now that that's nice and tight, you're going to just take your, you're just going to hold on to your 26 gauge, okay? Leave a little bit of slack in the wire to where it doesn't snap from pulling too hard, and then you're just going to start your twist, okay? Just like that, and then just going to follow it all the way down. Okay, and then you pull out a little bit more slack. Alright, and then you just continue on with the coil, pushing it down every so often, making sure it's nice and flush. Alright, so we're just gonna we're just gonna hold it in between our fingers and just let it ride down the length of the wire. Okay, so let's get back in the frame. Alright, so just keep on doing that. Sometimes it'll break, like it just did on me. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take our end that snapped off, we're just going to take that and reclamp it into your drill. Alright, so now right here you want to be careful because you can accidentally pull the coiled wire off, so just be careful not to do that. So got one spot that doesn't want to cooperate, so just take the nylons and force that puppy into place. Alright, so just continue on. And then you just keep on going all the way to the end. Okay, let me get y'all back in the frame. Alright, so, oops. I didn't tighten my drill chuck tight enough, so it fell out. That's a first. Alright, so now we're just going to continue on with our coil. You can do these by hand too, it just takes a lot longer. This is my preferred method of doing it, is using a drill. So it just makes it a lot quicker and a whole lot less work. Alright, so now we reached the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our flush cutters, cut off that little extra, cut off the 26 gauge, and then just going to snip off the 24 gauge off the fishing hook. So with that said and done, you take it off the drill, and then you have your completed coil. Okay, so okay, give me a minute and I'll move my camera back to the table. Alright, so now we have our coil, and at the end we have a little straggler right there, so we're going to go ahead and snip it off and using our pliers, we're just going to push the wire down to where it's sitting against the base wire, just like that. Okay, so, and then just like that, that little nib is gone. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I go back down to the bottom right here. Okay, so I do this step I do because sometimes when you're making these coils, especially the seamless coil, this coil wire tends to want to work itself off of the base wire as you're going, because the coils themselves expand a little bit when you're wrapping the wire around the base coil. Okay, so I do this to avoid that. I'll take it and I'll wrap it in a little circle right there, and then I'll just take it and wind it around the base of the coil a couple times, just to avoid that, and then snip the excess. Okay, so should have that now. Okay, and this ensures that your coil, as you're winding it, is going to stay nice and tight. Okay, so now we're going to take the end right here, and you're going to thread it through about a couple of inches. Okay, just to where you can have a little tail to hold on to, and you're going to start wrapping it like you would normally do a regular coil. Okay, so you're just going to wrap it like that. Okay. Just continue on. Now these right here, they will take practice. Okay, you probably won't get it perfect on your first try. It took me a month to figure this coil out. Okay, and I didn't have a tutorial. I had a picture to go off of, and I couldn't see the back of this coil or anything like that. Only thing I could see was the front of the coil, and it was sitting in some kind of bezel setting, so you know I had that to go off of. So it took me 2 weeks. 2 weeks of building up a scrap pile, so to speak, to figure this coil out. And once I figured it out, it took me about another 2 weeks to master it. So your first try may not come out perfect or anything like that, so you're just going to continue on wrapping like you normally would a regular coil. And I enjoy making this coil because it's, like I said, it's not as hard as it looks. It's just getting everything correct and for it to look just right, you know. And I hope to see some of the projects that you guys make with these. You know, make sure you show them off. You know, now the seamless coil technique is not my original idea. I learned it off of a picture, like I said, so I don't take credit for it. But it's a technique, so that's why I decided just to go ahead and do the tutorial video on it, you know, just to help you guys out. And since you guys were such a big part of me reaching over 1,000 subscribers, you know, I'd figure I'd do this as a gift to y'all, and to show my gratitude and my appreciation for everyone that's subscribed to my channel. You know, just continue. So we're just gonna continue on. You know, your ring's gonna be looking like this. Nothing fancy yet. So just continue. Now I make these. Y'all have seen my UFO. I make this coil for the UFO using the base ring is a 8 to 10 gauge base ring, and the coil is 20 gauge wrapped on 18 gauge. So it's a pretty steady, sturdy, beefy coil. I don't make too many UFOs because they do kind of hurt the fingers. I've actually had one of them give me a pretty bad blister because wrapping that coil is very difficult. It's wrapping this coil is very simple compared to that one. All of my seamless coils are done the exact same. The big ring, the big seamless coil ring for like the UFO and whatnot, I like to solder the entire thing, because I'll also show you that I'll show you where I normally solder it at. We're not going to solder this one shut for the sake of time on the video, but soldering it shut, it would be the exact same process as soldering this ring closed. You would also have to be very careful soldering it shut, because you can melt these two small wires extremely quick. So I prefer not. There's one reason why I prefer not to show that method, because I want everyone to get comfortable with making the seamless coil, you know, so they don't have to worry about melting any wires or anything like that. But we're almost to the end here. Okay, so you should have something looking like going like this. Okay, now almost there. So continue on. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. You want to continue on, even though it looks like it's done. but you want to continue on for a little bit, which is why I cut the extra length. You know, I take this wire right here and I'll unwind it, because it just to where it helps keep that entire coil nice and tight. Okay. Alright, so now pull that in like such. So sometimes you okay, so we got it in. Alright, so now I'm going to take that. Alright, so now this is what we should be looking like, okay? Right here. Alright, so we got a really nice seamless coil going right here. Okay, so now we're gonna take this right here and we're gonna move this to the back side of the coil itself. Okay, so you want it looking like that there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut each side off. So just cut it as low as you can, because you have to wrap it around the end. So as you can see right there, got a little nib sticking up. Okay, so now we're going to take that little nib with our pliers and just push it down. Push it into place to where it stays nice and tight. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to do the same thing with this side right here. We're going to cut this side off. You know, just make sure you're, when you cut it, just leave enough room to where it doesn't overlap this nib. Okay, because then it'll kind of make the coil seem a little wonky, so to speak. Okay, so I cut it about right there, as you can see. Okay, now just going to take the pliers again and just close it like such. Okay, so now this is where you're at. Okay, this seam is going to be hidden. That's the secret to this coil. Okay, now like I said, some coils I will solder that seam shut, because the wire acts really springy, and it'll open up that seam from time to time if you don't on the big ones. Okay, so now just going to take our mandrel again and make sure this ring is nice and round. Okay, alright, so now got it round. Now we want to just push down on it, a little bit, to where it's nice and straight again. You want to keep your coil straight. Now this one right here, we're going to use a finishing wire. Okay, so just make sure you're going to stay down. Okay, so we're going to take some 24 gauge again. I'm going to go pull up about another, 1.5 feet. You're going to have excess. I always cut longer than I need, because sometimes I will make the mistake and cut short and it won't work. So we're just going to take that wire right there and just go into the grooves just like you would a normal coil. Okay. Alright, so and then alright, so now you can stop every couple of wraps or so and take you a small gauge of weaving wire. Okay, and you're going to cut about about 4 to 6 inches. Okay, and then you're going to feed that wire through the ring itself, just like that. And then you're going to come in between one of them grooves, and you're going to pull that wire through. Okay, now this wire right here. Okay, so now we got it through. Okay, so this is what we're looking like right here. Alright, so now the purpose of that wire is to attach the coil itself to your work that you're working on. Okay, if you have seen my double-sided pendants, and you'll notice that there's a seamless coil attached on one side. That's exactly how it's done. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and I'll show you a completed coil that I have with everything. So that's the process. That's how you want to do it. Okay, so now this right here is a seamless coil that I made yesterday, and as you can see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 attaching wires. Okay, I use 28 gauge because they're sturdy and they won't break easily when you're trying to wind this finishing wire. Okay, so you just want to be mindful of that. Just not to move your wires from side to side too much, because it will make them brittle and they'll break. So with that said, that is exactly how the seamless coil is made. Thank you. Any questions? Feel free to send me an instant message on Messenger or contact me on Facebook, and I will be glad to assist you. Thanks.